Welcome to another episode of Advocata Conversations, and we are recording this at the Reform Now conference premises. If you haven't still watched Reform Now conference, all content is available on our Facebook and also on our YouTube channel. So please subscribe Advocata Plus and share the content, and you can watch all the content and download all presentations, all free of charge. So please make sure that you watch all content, because we are talking about resetting Sri Lanka. That's the need of the hour. We all know we are in the middle of a massive economic crisis, so we all have to move forward. That's why we are bringing you the Reform Now conference. In this conversation, we are going to talk about fintech, and this word is quite familiar, but we thought the concept of fintech is still yet to take off ground, and the discussion is there, but people really don't know what can be done with fintech. So joining with me today is Hithesh Fernando, who has 20 years of experience in banking in Sri Lanka and in Maldives, and he's the founder and CEO of Fintech Digital. Hithesh, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to our conversation.
Thank you, Dhananath. Thank you for having me. And it's a great session. And since yesterday, I've been watching so much of information. And as even at the beginning, we heard from previous governor of Central Bank Thailand, lots of even Mr. President mentioned what we need is action. So I'm going to talk about bit about what we can bring in by getting fintech into act with banks, because we have been hearing what fintech does in the other part. When fintech came into the picture, fintech is financial technology. They were had doubts whether they are going to take over banking
Yes,
system.
Hitesh, if I may interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to first understand what is fintech, because this word has been used. I think different people think different things when you
Yes.
say fintech. Could you kindly elaborate
Yeah.
for our viewers what is fintech and what actually what can be done with fintech, and how we can advance the quality of quality of life of people through fintech?
Yeah, so there are various aspects we can look at, right? So it can be a banking system which bring in certain financial technology. Fintech is financial technology. There's no rocket science there, right? So in the world arena, so fintech has been even boomed into certain ways of getting into metaverse, Web3, and blockchain, cryptocurrency, and all that. So like you said, it's here for Sri Lanka. We have to start somewhere small, because the attention for fintech has not been the great. But having said that, banks are trying their level best to bring in certain elements by getting into digital, as well as introducing fintech products. But real fintech has to happen from third party, apart from banking system. We are bringing in an innovation to help the citizen in way of various things. It can be what we do from our institute. As we are Fintech Digital Pvt Ltd, focusing on all the fintechs in Sri Lanka, helping them get into the marketplace. When you say a marketplace, is also there are banks, there are finance companies. So we have two initiatives. One is any bank with a q.lk. We have listed almost all banks in Sri Lanka and their products in a very uniform manner. And for every other finance company as well as fintechs separately running, we have any finance with a z.lk. So these two platforms actually are like ecosystem in the market, where any average person can come and get a basic information, as well as get a basic financial literacy, and get an informed decision. And they'll be included into the financial system. So this is a very different fintech. Fintech we have heard in the world arena, they are basically getting the bank's business. But here, what we bring in as Fintech Digital and from any bank and any finance are helping banks and finance companies to further monetize.
Right, Hitesh. So how this is going to impact people's lives, because we talked about so many things that has to be done to reset the economy, about social safety nets, about collecting taxes. This all has a banking and a digital aspect and like payment aspect. So could you elaborate to us
Yeah.
what can be done and how people's lives can be improved?
Yeah, so as I mentioned initially, it has to start from the scratch. We have the education system, as we say, right? So if you take a look at the education system, the more practical ways of in terms of starting financial literacy, that's where we need to start, I believe. Because if I may ask, if even ask the average interns, very knowledgeable, literate people, do you have an account? They say soon after school, they'll say, what account? My father would have opened one. That's about it. So we are there right now. So that's urban. So when you look at rural areas, it can also be even they don't know even a bank account. So this is where we have to get to urban, because the banks more banks focus, bank and finance companies, even fintechs focus on urban. So you have to go to rural, and 80% of the rural areas actually are not having this financial literacy mainly. But in terms of financial literacy in Sri Lanka is also 35%. So that's where we have to start. Fintech, even banking system, all get together, can start giving basic information what banking account is, what a credit card is, not because someone pushes. So when I say pushes, because me being a banker for 20 years in retail frontline from the scratch, we always educate what you're getting into. So that's just one bank. Imagine about 30 banks and 50 separate, but you will only end up with one or two accounts. So there is so much that we can do. We have to start from the education system, basic financial literacy. Because I remember, I mean, maybe you can remember, our schools had a mini branch. But
Yes,
that what happened to
exactly.
that concept is what we need to. But that can be a digital branch. We can help with that. So there's whole heap of things which dots can be connected to the entire economy, entire Sri Lanka, and even out of the country as well.
Hitesh, since you spoke about the financial literacy, which is very, very important in Sri Lanka, and so what I understood is your platform, it brings the information of all banks. For an example, if I want to open an account on Bank X, a savings account, I can compare the rates of savings account of all banks and probably make a conscious decision on, okay, which bank fits, offers a better interest rate, and maybe better terms and conditions. Am I right understanding your platform?
Yes, Dhananath, it's correct. And if I may elaborate a bit more, because now the world is concerned, these kind of initiatives are there. So we just exactly mentioned, when we go into market, when you go into speak to heads of financials and even regulators, are you an aggregator? They ask. So aggregator is the name that is being created in the world, because it was started somewhere 90s, 1970s with bank rate, right? So since then, every other country region has been copied that and having an aggregator, like you just said, just comparing rates.
Right.
What we have given is and it's much more,
Much more than
because
that.
you
Okay.
can compare the features, eligibilities, documents needed, and from there onwards we have direct links to bank websites as well. Because
Right.
if you go to, I mean, not giving any negative comments, because banks have different ways of formulating information. Rates maybe in another place, features in another place, product set is another place. So connecting everything into one marketplace will help end user to get an informed decision, like you mentioned, especially reading the features. For an example, there can be women specific accounts with an insurance cover, right? So there can be a separate insurance backed account which no one have heard of. So there can be a special children savings accounts, right? Several children savings, which backed by insurance cover and educational facility at the end of the tenure. So these things can be really carefully look at it. Then banks will have a opportunity to really do an audit with the comparisons in the market, whether are we really competitive in the market as well.
Okay, Hitesh, just want to understand. So, in terms of this fintech, where Sri Lanka stands, I know we you mentioned it's about 35% financial literacy, but I know we have, I think, about 70% of our population has bank accounts. If you have a stat, could you mention? And where are we in the front of fintech? I mean, in that world where we stand.
Yeah, so you're correct in saying that even basic account is concerned, that stat is correct, 70 range. But the financial literacy, when I say it's 30, because literacy can be defined, right? So the basic literacy also we define whether it's correct terms is a concern. But financial literacy, when we look at it, whether they know a basic account, whether they are getting into an account, whether current account, even right now, need of the hour, we need to know whoever, like, expects leaving, whether they have a proper account they open. So that's some areas that we are really in need of the hour been looking at it. So and fintech is even hard to explain, so we don't have to complicate it. Financial technology is a term. What we are doing is a very basic level of integration here. When you say integration is also another technical word, it's just a one place to get information would be correct. And our tagline is also uh, uh, all banking information in one place. So banking at your fingertips, simple as that. So going back into fintechs, the journey of a fintech here is a bit of a challenge. I have been studying this since 5 years when I was planning this. I can take this conversation to Economic Summit we had in 2016. That's where everything came into my mind. Even Mr. Anand Rajan was explaining what Sri Lanka can do back in 5 years, bringing electricity-based trishows, bring an innovation to trishows. So if we implemented half of it we've been discussed back in 2016, we have a better footing right now. So coming back to fintech, so example, bringing in that element without complicating it, what we are trying to do.
Okay. Thanks, Hithesh. So, just also want to understand like what now. Let's say Sri Lanka has a lot of requirements in terms of this financial technology and financial markets integration. Now, what in this conference what we spoke about was one requirement is being the social safety nets, and probably to for people to have payment gateways, payment platforms to do their businesses, and transfer money, things like that. So let's start with the social safety nets. So how can fintech could really ramp up the game if we have the fintech or the setup that you speak about?
Yeah, so with a fintech approach, this actually had been recommended back in 2014 by World Bank. Fintech can play this part in terms of getting that financial literacy and inclusion to what the segment that we spoke about. So especially having that target group, the financial literacy may be even lower. It can be 50-60 range. So if we're talking about paying cash to them, even what we spoke about, some of the to any other ways of paying out, it can maybe a situation where they will not be able to push it properly, get into a banking system. So we don't have to have a fintech, but we as fintech, focusing on financial literacy and inclusion, we can list them down, whether they who have bank accounts, who doesn't have bank accounts, go and educate them. Look, there are several bank accounts which you can compare, and based on your appetite, based on your need, you can open, and then they have a bank account. So we have to also get together with the decision makers to to really push this conversion, not pay out cash, get them into list them their accounts, at least do away with a transfer. So that transfer help, I actually mentioned it, right? So if they really analyze for them to go and withdraw from a particular ATM, it doesn't have to, because we have with central bank and even certain institutions have helped bringing out ATMs which you can access. Any bank account can be accessed from certain ATMs with 30 rupees charge. So you don't have to take a bus or a trishaw and go spend more to withdraw cash. So these basic level of education will help them. They'll happy to get not cash but to an account, right? So
Right.
we can start there. Again, doesn't have to
You can
complicate
save some
as
fuel as well on
exactly.
transportation.
Yes, and also having said that, certain elements I would like to highlight. The moment we have now that we have listed bank accounts and all the other products through any bank q.lk, bank's point of view, the moment they open up their digital account open. So that's been discussed. That's some banks have actually moved forward. I can't mention it. Say you can have a look on our site which bank has digitalized account open. So what we have narrowed down is you don't have to really be literacy or English language. You can, it's trilingual. You can select the language and go and read the account details and submit the application through us. Then it goes to the banking system. None of the data is being collected by us, because It's an unbiased marketplace. Ultimately, you will be opening an account in the banking. So the moment we educate them, you don't have to even go to a bank. In future, if all banks have digitalized their account opening, and if we take a further step, which central bank is just talking about, sharing KYC, you just have to open one bank account. Then your account packet can be shared among other banks if you decide to switch the product. So
Right.
this is the technology that we can integrate. That's what we are talking about. And if really glad if the national ID system also comes, that also can be integrated. So these suggestions can be put forth to uh, ease out the safety net and who are actually eligible. I mentioned it, right? So banks do a periodic review of their staff, their customer accounts. So the account packets are freely available if it's open up. These regulators and decision maker can take an informed decision there as well.
Hitesh, the other topic of the town is the other topic that is quite often discussed is the undial system and this all informal money transfer methods, so on and so forth. uh, how does that market get I mean, what's is there a solution under this platform for that, and what we should do about it?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, because having a platform actually right now, what we are focusing on that need of the hour, right? So we are focusing on educating expats, right? Because we our platform had been checked by 160 country expats, because they don't have, other than few overseas branches, they don't have the entire branch network. Starting from the exchange fluctuation, that was actually went viral with various channels, because they were so curious to know what exchange rate is available, right? So with that, we thought about it. Our duty is also there, that we never thought of, right? So what if we educate in correct way of remittance? There are several remittance products. So banks are actually doing their level best to educate in mass media, but that mass media probably are Sri Lankans watching, right? So we can do target campaigns. We are right now doing target campaigns to educate what good ways of sending money. And yes, true that Hawala and Undial system had been actually doing some sort of it's those are illegal, right? So getting them educated, there are right ways of doing it, and also very encouraging of recent decisions being taken to encourage more into the correct channels. So in future, we actually in touch with central bank FRFT department, very encouraging. They are listening to us as well. The fact that the certain additional benefits that the expats get when they do it through the banking system. And another thing, right? So during April, during this tough situation, there had been a negative scam, negative vibe created. Don't send money to Sri Lanka. So that's very wrong, right? So even if you send it through India, it's wrong because it's not coming to the banking system. So another thing I must highlight, expats. We are encouraging expats to have a look at it. Your particular bank, which product available that you can use to send money to Sri Lanka in a proper way. And in future, we are actually trying to propose certain solutions like get registered to one of as users and track your remittance. So that will encourage them to track the remittance and meet those benchmarks given to get eligible to electric vehicle. So to get a special rate housing loans. So there are really good things happening. Additionally, what we're trying to get is a dashboard created through this platform. We have a e-wallet section, like a web banner, weekly basis to analyze how the remittances, as we speak, what we have received to create the transparency. So these, of course, are created in a way to get all stakeholders, everyone's attention required at this point in time, not only banks, every institution, embassies, even agencies, everyone possible to support this initiative. That if we can quickly get this active, even with regulators' help, we can hit up to 1 billion US dollars month on month as a solution for fuel, medicine, and everything else that people suffer with.
Okay. Hitesh, also I want to understand now on this fintech, the platform that you speak about. Does it also, because there was a discussion at one point on PayPal and on these payment gateways as well? Is there a connection, or isn't there a connection? How do you for the understanding of our viewers,
Yes.
how do you do they also have an advantage?
Yeah, as we speak, actually, we are giving now, as mentioned, there are about thousand products in the market, right? So we have to ease out in a way what is suitable. Right now, we are focusing on retail products. Retail, when you say retail banking, basic accounts, starting from children savings to senior citizens accounts, all credit cards, all type of loans, and even bank related news offers, right? So you might have few different banks that you're dealing with. How to get your offers at one place is something that's festive season, right? So a lot of traction that time. In terms of payment gateways, applications, there are close to about 60 different e-wallets banking applications, as well as now new topic in the town is buy now pay later application. So there's so much of products. In terms of getting some attention to e-wallets in the market right now of banks, we have placed out there. It's very easy to understand. That's actually the vision of central bank as well. Make these e-wallets more popular, and then that also with a vision that you're not just based sake of downloading. You're downloading. You know exactly because you're reading the features. If there is a certain commercial that the bank or the application provides, we have embedded that also. So you get to know more about it. We'll start with e-wallets, even bank apps, and remittance related apps. And also there is in future, of course, merchant related applications, which is needed because no point having a e-wallet if you can't pay it through a merchant. So merchant acquisition be happening very soon. We are in touch with certain fintechs. We being a fintech, we are helping certain fintechs to list merchant related, as well as in future when PayPal or any other means come, we are a platform to list.
Okay, Hitesh, we are moving to the final stage of the conversation. Do you have any regulatory barriers in in moving in the fintech direction? What stops you in expanding? What stops you in getting things done?
Yeah, so in a innovation like this, we have to carefully look at it. So right now we have not touched any of those banking payment systems, right? Or any of those information collection. That's pure divert of web traffic to bank products, and also helping people to uh, make a decision and also improve inclusion. So in that context, we don't have to really go and get a banking license or a fintech related license. Anybody who's looking at it. But if you're really working on a payment platform, if you're working with payment transfers and things like that, they of course have to go through the regulatory uh, attention. And but having said that, any fintech our nature needs that high level of attention to communicate, right, together, that we can do a lot. But I understand certain regulators cannot really be biased because everyone else will come and ask for it. But there has to be some way of identification of such fintechs to prosper. And you can see the map we have done, right? So even helping, even if you get right national attention today, we can start today starting getting the international markets expects to bring down $1 billion. So see the potential, and even go global as well, right? So Philippines actually recently announced a paper that marketplace similar to ours. So if we have that attention of central bank, they can export our product. Say, look here, we have a really similar solution that you can take and run.
Hitesh, my last question is, in terms of moving forward, uh, what what changes that you want to see uh, in to expand this, and mainly to improve the quality of life of people and bringing financial literacy for people. What your company can bring it to the table, and how it's going to affect common man's life.
Yeah, so it's a broader question, but I'll limit it example now. Those discussion that central bank is taking place in terms of digitalizing account opening, sharing of KYC. This has to fast track, and also even look at open banking concepts that has been discussed. It's actually slowed down, but if we can fast track it, we can also help being a front end face for it. But to answer how we can help the community, of course, we have to partner in every institute as possible, helping us in terms of making this popular, right? So, example, a situation like today, thank you for having this, because we can then communicate to the community that there are tools available, and if you really use it to the right reason, our future going to be really bright, and fintechs can also be relevant in the market. Not only banks related fintech products, but fintech in independent like us can really be meaningful as well.
Thank you, Hitesh, for joining us. Hitesh is the founding CEO of Fintech Digital, and he has been a banker for 20 years in Sri Lanka and Maldives. Thank you very much, Hitesh, for joining us. And thank you very much for watching us. Please subscribe, share, and tell to people about the content, and subscribe our channel Advocata Plus and Advocata. Thank you very much.
Thank you.